everybody. So my next topic, I'm going to talk about the Web Gateway. I'm just going to give you some of the overviews, how it can be implemented, things like that. I do have a couple slides. Don Schley was nice enough to talk about the implementation that he did at his company. He had a lot of different areas that he had to bring in order to make this work because of the environment that he had. Not a limitation of the product itself, but for some areas in his own environment. So we'll share that after I get down the architectural overview. Like I mentioned earlier, this is part of the protection suite. With the caveat of we buy the clients if you want to do an filtering. You have that as an add-on. Specifically in line if you for the clients if you want to protect against the web threats. It can sit out. I'm only putting this Symantec Web Gateway slide up here because it's going to come into play at the end. The nice thing about this is Symantec Web Protection, Security Solutions, SIM or SIM Solutions, and of course Web Gateway are all components that are absolutely tied into the whole protect against the different threats out there. We see over 30% of local, I think it's actually about 35% of local email traffic now comes through Symantec. So it's the largest cloud network outside of one of the intel agencies, so it's very, very big, very large, and like I said, it is tied into the Web Gateway. So you have that disclosure of fingertips. Two types of appliances. The 8450 doesn't always really pertain to most of my customers in enterprise space or even large enterprise with about 1,000 connections. We typically would see the 8490, and Don, you had the 8490s.
We had the smaller version, 50s, right?
You did have it?
Yeah, we actually did.
Oh, okay. And this is kind of the big dog of the Web Gateways, RAID 5, 2U. Still, it's really not that big. But those are the options. Virtual machine option, like I did say, over there, you can currently download if you are a Protection Suite customer. One of the benefits, as I said previously, is that if you took the Web Gateway out, you just had SEP and you wanted to have Web Gateway, maybe one or two other things in the suite, it's much more cost effective to just roll the suite. And this is part of the suite. You get the subscription and then you just make the clients and you are off if you want to do that and implement it in your environment. The virtual machine version is available today. Basically with that, you're only really going to be able to plug into a span port or a switch and get the reporting and monitoring. You wouldn't really get a whole lot of the benefit of the compliance in line. High throughput is to 1 gig. Your end users are not going to see barely any latency when it comes to web pages or downloads. If they do a download from the internet, the Web Gateway will get that file and scan it, and then if there is malware in it or it's a blocked file, then you don't want those kind of files in your environment. The end user will get a web page that will say we're not allowed to have society allowed to download the file. We do cover all different ports, protocols, inbound, outbound, URLs, IPs. Like this is a big difference between us and the competition is that this was built from the ground up for web security. Like the URL is an add-on. So some deployment options. The first one on the left is the port span or the tab. Like I said, you are going to have majority. You're going to have like the reporting capabilities. Not so much blocking capabilities like you would if it was inline. With the inline configuration, you will be able to monitor all sorts of protocols. Now, the nice thing is with the whole intelligence network, the first slide I showed, we can detect whether endpoints are connecting to known documents. So if you are looking at taking the Web Gateway and just looking at implementation outbound, does cover all those downloads, HTTP, FTP, and Symantec app. So this is really, when it comes to blocking, you will have URLs, HTTP, some TCP, no download coverage for blocking. But like I said, you will get the monitoring and you will get the reporting for the URLs and malware, botnets. But you would not be able to block the botnet traffic from your endpoints outbound to your laptop if it was spam. So we do cover inline proxy, which is, I think, Don, is that your model?
We didn't go, well, directly in line, but we did go proxy.
You kind of did something, okay.
Yep.
You'll explain that, because I have to I don't understand how you think. Don took the Web Gateway home over the weekend and figured out how to make it work in his environment. It was pretty cool. Blocking any communication. Inline, it does say, okay, so inline connected tab on the right-hand side. Like I mentioned, you really want this type of web security solution inline here to give you the type of protection that you get from a real web security solution. Your web sense are in line, the codes are in line. Does everybody have a web security kind of technology at your companies? This is, if you do have a suite, this is an option to look at as far as consolidation. Not saying you have to switch. Of course, the Symantec guy would like that. We'd like to take over the world. Okay.
What's saying I have?
What's that?
What's saying I have?
You have
Taking over the world.
I don't know.
It's when we do everything.
See, Bob's new. So Bob's the new Symantec guy. So we'll figure out. But without further so this is Don, these are Don's slides. Are you ready to talk about them? You want to talk about them?
Yeah. I think the one thing that I kind of can talk about is this is, well, let's start back with, we talked about appliances. We did actually go for the smaller appliance. Part of the reason we did that was we wanted to make sure things were scalable, as well as we have a lot of distributed connections within a company. As you can imagine, any multinational company would have different points of presence. So effectively, this is one data center, if you will, that had two different providers. When we deployed this, one of our big rules that I think he was discussing was we had issues with, they did not want to put this in line. They were really scared about putting something in line. It was pretty much a directive from our networking groups that you can't do that. And I actually have heard that from many different companies. That's a very common thing. They're concerned about taking and shutting down that pipe if something does go wrong. So effectively what we did was we put it in line with a proxy, Squid proxy server, if anyone's familiar with that. So we put it in line. So if anyone was actually specifically hit Squid, they would actually go through this web gateway. And that's kind of the deployment model. So effectively what this slide is showing, and if you look on the bottom part here with the user, there's two different use cases that we kind of had. We had where they would use, and off to the right, the explicit proxy path. That's where a browser was specifically set up. That could be group policy, that could be many different ways that was done. And then obviously, if people are not familiar with the intent eventually was to turn on WCCP, the Web Content Caching Protocol on the switches, and effectively the second path from the user, which shows, if you will, the transparent proxy path, and that's actually going straight up through the firewalls. Squid actually was configured to be not only a explicit proxy server, it could also handle WCCP requests, and that actually would still flow right through the web content filtering. So that's how we actually did this, to have both things, to get adoption. They were really scared about if this is going to impact anything. One of the cool things that I did was from an explicit path, because explicit's very easy to put clients on and then clients off. I actually had an automatic config proxy script. First we pushed it out via group policy. Now that only does affect Internet Explorer, by the way. It does not get your Firefoxes, it doesn't get your Chrome. The only way to do that would be transparent, unless they specifically set up themselves. But what we did was, I actually had the auto proxy config web server, which is probably not, it's not shown on that. We actually had an active script that was actually run by a database. So effectively, I could tell what IP or address you were coming from, what your host name was, and I can actually make the decision whether you should get a appropriate proxy configuration pack file that would point to it, or you are effectively getting a null configuration, which means everything was direct. And from a rollout perspective, we actually could, the beta testing, we actually had put people on it, and they could literally go to a web page and remove themselves from the proxy just by clicking a button, and that would effectively change the back-end database and restart IE. But that's effectively our solution at this point. And obviously, 2 different data centers, there's different firewalls, but you can imagine that exploded exponentially. The cool part is that proxy server that I had, if I wanted to give, I don't know, someone in a different data center or reroute all web traffic, say we had an outage somewhere that affected the internet but not the private pipes, I could literally redirect everybody's proxy right back to a different data center. So a very flexible solution. So. This is actually just showing specifically how we did the configuration. It was, as you see kind of here, the Cisco switch, we had our own VLANs here. And then the center box here is the Web Gateway. We did a, effectively it is actually a crossover cable. We did eventually run that through a switch, by the way, on its own VLAN to the actual Red Hat Squid proxy server. And that's how the configuration was in more detail. So effectively, traffic does actually come through. It flows both times through the appliance, one way going into the proxy, and then the proxy also flows up through going out. So effectively, you could check it twice on the appliance, but we actually set the rule so it'd only be checked on incoming. So, and one thing also is that the failover modes, we did test all of our failover modes. I think there's a, I don't know if I give you the slide on this, but we actually went through each failure. We kind of did a failure mode analysis where we failed certain pieces just to validate, prove that, you know, cutovers are going to happen here. In our proxy.config pack file, we actually we used the last bit of the IP address to determine what the proxy server is. So we actually, you would get a different proxy server, and effectively that's how we actually load balance between them, because we actually did a little proxy.pack file. Yep, that's it.
How do you handle clients that are off-site?
At this point, we were not going to do that. Effectively, we did have a proxy server out in our DMZ, so they can handle it. At that point in deployment, we just said go direct, but I actually could have, if I wanted to, have them, the design is that they would ask for the proxy.pack file. There are certain things that I could do when they come in for asking for it. I would be able to validate their IP and their requests and give them access to the proxy. If you, in fact, set up IP tables, if you will, was the intent on Linux, so that they would actually get hit external, they could use that external proxy, and eventually it would shut down, so it's not open for the world. So that was the intent. Yep.
I guess to that point, our web gateway, unless you're, right now, it's not VPN in, you're coming in through the corporate network, you're not going to get that capability. We did acquire Message Labs, a while ago. They do have a smart connect. It's like I don't want to call it an agent, but it would rely on and they would go through our cloud from there. So you have web security going to the cloud, no matter where the end users are, corporate or off the corporate network. I don't know for sure if we are looking at bringing in an agent. I don't know if we did. Because I think you asked at one time, Don.
Yeah.
I've asked the product management team if there is interest to let me know. I think there were some workarounds that we did, and maybe it was that whole and the DMZ. I don't know for sure.
Oh, I know, and just to throw out I did look at competitors too that did this, and there was one other competitor that did a solution like that, but to be blatantly honest, it was exactly what we were doing is, oh, let's just put out a server out in our DMZ. That was their solution, and their client was nothing more than it just gives authentication back and forward, which is something fairly easy to do. So it wasn't, I mean, you can kind of do the same solution, like you said, putting this out. The only advantage that, that you could have is, like you said, putting it in the cloud. If you do put it in the cloud and have it, particularly if you have people in Europe, that would be one where they could hit that presence, but those solutions would be able to help. I would strongly caution people, though, that you do have to check for web proxy caching and things. You need to make sure that the local country that you're in, you can do certain things. Germany has some huge issues on that. So case in point, if you're doing it internationally, it's a big issue. So.
And Jeff, you want to add anything?
We didn't do it this way. We went direct inline blocking, and we didn't have to convince the network guys that this isn't going to be an issue. They had to prove it, but once we proved it, we put it in. It's going through 50 gig worth of traffic every day, 1.5 million web URLs that it's taken a look at, and not a hiccup. The only thing we did see is a lot of weather bugs.
Big surprise. That's an hour I need power.
I don't care about it.
Hey,
So, I guess this wasn't lively enough, I'm sorry. I thought even if I bowled it more, I'd get some laughs, but I guess
hey, Tom,
anyways.
Tom, can I add one thing?
What's that guy?
I do want to say, though, I think the reason we went for that configuration and not an inline, besides our networking group, one of the things that I think Symantec has done, and they've in the new release with the virtual piece, they've added this. They've actually built in the proxy itself in the appliance. That was not the reason. That was not the case when I did it. Hence why I did this. Yeah. And I know in the roadmap, the proxy they have right now is an explicit proxy. It does not support transparent, but that is on the roadmap for the next release. So effectively, the whole solution I showed you, which was, I mean, it's complicated, you know, to add that configuration. This is going to be all done in one box. So if you can't put it in line, they now will have that answered just very easily. So you can do both solutions, and I think that's a good thing for it.
It does fail open, so if it gets turned off or it falls over, it's completely fail open.
You have one or two boxes. Okay. So, are you looking at failing networks at the other end?
No, we've got a unique situation. We've got our two buildings at Viking Drive going out one pipe, and we've got a bunch of plants that come back through circuits that we're using through the other one. So we actually have two. They're not redundant. And that's why it was important that it fail open, which we did test, and it nothing. So it's fine.
Took in the internet access.
Yeah.
Nobody's always getting back because the case is Now, you were also you were also a piece.
We looked at it,
Okay.
but we didn't put it in.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, the big thing here is that, you know, in Jeff's environment, they were really looking for a web security type of technology. I don't want to hear that either. Okay. I'm going crazy. No, I was just asking. I'm making sure I was sane.
You're not.
Anyway, I'm not saying. Okay. All right. Well, even Jeff, I think even though I tried to get some funny example of this, I think it was still a little. I got more laughs than usual.
I got a kind of question. You guys use it other than getting trending. I mean, you're getting trending and you're getting protection through the filtering. I mean, are those the key reasons why?
Yeah, and also it's up and down. One of the things that we have, and we've got obviously firewalls, but that doesn't look at any of the traffic going out.
Sure.
And so one of the things I was more interested in was seeing bots and anything that was going out to control sites. So we wanted to make sure that we were clean on that side of it.
Does it monitor all ongoing traffic?
Everything.
I mean, because you're in line,
Yes.
so therefore it's doing everything. Whereas in your configuration where it was 40, you'd
Correct.
only be really monitoring the web 80.
That's correct.
So in your case, if you had a situation where you had a workstation that had some kind of a weird bot virus on it that was sending out emails, you'd be detecting that, you'd go, wait a minute, why has this guy got all this system?
And blocking it. It would never get there. That was because you see the bot traffic go and it knows it has both the web addresses, so it knows the known command and control logs, and it stops it cold right at the gateway.
How long have you had it in place?
The one we've had in since February, and the second one we put it in June.
Can you do you do think reports back that far, or do you kind of, you know?
We also opened up Skype, so you can actually see the different types of traffic going through. So you can see Skype, you can see FTP, you can see web traffic, all of it. So, but we're not really going.
You're not out for a witch hunt. You're just making
no,
sure.
we don't have. We looked at the user actual piece where you block by web. By application by the user. Okay. But we didn't purchase that part of it. We just wanted to look globally to make sure that if we had an infection, that it wasn't able to spread.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the big difference. Inline, being able to detect and block, specifically like the bot network traffic, versus if it was spam, you're just tapping the spam on a switch, you would get the reporting and alerting, but it wouldn't block that traffic. So kind of falls into this next slide right here. So a couple things that we offer if you're interested, and I just want to make sure everybody had information around it. It's called, the first one is the malicious activity assessment. That is using our web gateway. That would be plugged into just a span port on a switch. Very easy, you plug it in, we're looking at the traffic, we're not blocking anything. Don's point, not being able to go in line. This is just an assessment. Typically our partners do it. So whatever security partner you use, a number of them have the capability to do the malicious activity assessments. This will give you an idea of infected endpoints. Also, along lines of a health check, if you are, a SEP customer, maybe you're not using, the intrusion prevention. Maybe you're not using some of the capabilities within SEP. To the most effective way that you possibly could. This would give you, the ability to at least assess that and maybe use some of those key features in the future testing out, or even have that person implement those for you down the road. The DLP risk assessment, a number of you have gone through this. I know that are in this room. Is a data loss prevention risk assessment. So this is something that we would come in. We put network compliance in, so inbound, outbound, we monitor content, intellectual property, look at what your, key intellectual property, your crown jewel of the companies that we go into. We have templates that create hashes of information and get an idea of what's going out about your environment. What's kind of neat about this is now it has the capability to watch for information going on to Facebook, some of the social networking sites. So if there's intellectual property may leak onto those sites, the DLP risk assessment or even the other DLP solution is the ability to detect that. Going on to Gmail, webmail, I know that if you were to take, let's say just a subset of credit card information through PCI, let's say we took, somebody wanted to swipe 1,000 credit card numbers and change the spreadsheet to an MP3 and try to send it out to Gmail. This solution can catch that and block it, and then give the ability to do the correlation around the event. Maybe Joe has done this so many times in the past and has a correlation capability. He's had these events. Maybe he's looking for a new job. Maybe he's trying to get different information out there. No. I'm not saying it is something that a witch hunt. We're not doing it's not there for a witch hunt type of capability, but it does protect your environment from intellectual property. We also will do we'll set up another box for depending on the environment. We can look at your storage environment. So where is intellectual property stored? You know, on your share, we did have one DLP risk assessment. In the first 5 minutes, they found a file with 30,000 social security numbers on it, sitting on a share that would be accessible to everybody. And so that's one of those things we go right over to the CIO and CISO and say, hey, we got to get this removed from this share, but also where else is it in the environment? You know, on other shares, on other storage, you know, how to get those from that. So that's from a DLP risk assessment, there's a phased approach. You know, it's not like you call up Symantec or a partner and say, you know, come to the DLP risk assessment. There's steps they have to do, a couple steps they have to do prior to coming in. But it is a Symantec paid type of assessment that can do. And this is actually really cool, the last one. This is something we just started doing. So I mentioned the global intelligence network and why that comes into play. And yes, it is tied into the Web Gateway and it's tied into our solutions. But it's just this template, this custom report, this template that you know, you can ask your Symantec SE, typically, some of the reps will do it as well. But send this template out, give us your IPs, your operating systems. It's fairly quick, it only takes about 5–10 minutes to fill out. And we take that template back to our managed security side, our managed security services side, and they tap into the global intelligence network for the past 90 days to see if your IP addresses, to see if you're attacked, see if you are attacking anybody else. It's actually kind of cool. We've had that happen before in the past, and you know, able to make sure that our customers, whether they know it or not, you know, have a window into the last 90 days of our intelligence network. And it's all customized. So, you know, it is a confidential report. You know, it's not being shared. You're not having someone up here on the board say, hey, Piper Jaffrey, you guys are doing all this. But, you know, it is a nice report to have just to see what, you know, we've seen in the last 90 days if your environment is in our database. So if you're interested in that, you know, go ahead and email your SE. We'll move that template. 2 to 3 weeks. It only takes a few days to get back to information. It's a nice little report on that. So, thank you. Are there any questions on the risk assessments or template?
All right, thanks, Tom.